I'm pregnant. Don't come back.
What?
Didn't you hear me? I'm pregnant with John's baby.
That can't be.
Hazel, it's your fault. You were busy taking care of your mom, leaving your husband all alone. You brought this on yourself. Mary said this with a triumphant look. But I didn't flinch. I took advantage of her "don't come back" remark.
Really? I'd be happy to.
My unexpected reaction left John and Mary stunned. Hazel, what are you talking about? Aren't you mad that I cheated? Well, I was shocked at first, but I'm not mad. Besides, I've got a new place now.
A new place? What's that?
Yes, I have somewhere else to go. I can leave John, whom I no longer trust, to Mary. That's what I whispered to myself. And, little did they know, a huge disaster was waiting for them. I'm Hazel, a 43-year-old housewife working in construction. I've had a childhood friend named Mary. We've been playing together since we were kids. But by middle school, we both became pretty wild and ended up like delinquent friends. This lasted until we graduated high school, but as adults, we lived completely different lives. I hated studying as a kid, but in my 20s, I worked hard to get qualifications while working. This paid off, and my career took off in my 30s. Meanwhile, Mary spent her 20s and 30s just having fun, saying it's a loss not to enjoy life. So there we were, past 40, both unmarried, me and Mary. But Mary didn't seem too worried. Unlike her, I was raised by a single mom after losing my dad early. I wanted to get married and give back to my mom. At work, there were many men, but they were mostly married. I casually asked my boss if he knew any good single men. He introduced me to a single guy around my age who was a friend of his. He is John. 2 years older than me, runs a construction company. He looked serious and well-mannered. Running a company inherited from his parents, John was always focused on work, like me. He, too, had been busy working and earning qualifications, which seemed to have kept him from being very interested in marriage until now. Having common interests, we hit it off and continued dating. After a year, we promised to marry each other. I told Mary about my engagement.
Really? That's great, Hazel. Congratulations.
Thanks. Sorry I'm getting married before you.
Don't worry about it. Just be happy.
Mary said, genuinely happy for me.
Thanks a lot. You must come to the wedding. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
After telling Mary, all that was left was to prepare for the wedding. Tomorrow, I'll be visiting John's childhood home for the first time. I was excited and felt my heart dance with joy. However, I soon had to realize that my joyful mood was only temporary. The next morning, I got ready with determination, preparing myself by that morning. John's childhood home. I wondered what it was like. Though it's called his childhood home, John's parents had already passed away. So, it's actually the house where he currently lives alone. Nevertheless, I was curious about the environment he grew up in. I had wanted to visit his house before, but he never invited me. His house seemed to be quite far from mine, located at the foot of a mountain. I have a car, so I planned to go there directly after getting the address, but John offered to pick me up since it was a hard-to-find place. While driving, John said a bit sheepishly,
"Well, it's quite rural, so you might be surprised." "No, I prefer quiet places over busy ones. If it's in the countryside, it must be peaceful. I'm really looking forward to it."
I said this to lighten the mood, but John just gave a hesitant hum and tilted his head, as if he didn't want me to get my hopes up too much. But for me, it was the place where the person I love lived. Just the thought of it filled me with excitement. We drove for over an hour after entering the neighboring county. Heading into a dark bamboo grove, nothing like the peaceful countryside I had imagined. Finally, we stopped at a place that felt eerily like an abandoned site.
"We're here. This is my house,"
he said, stopping in what seemed like a garage surrounded by rubble. In front of us was an old house that looked over 100 years old.
This house is? Yes, this is my place. It's a bit old but well built.
I stood there, mouth agape, looking around. The large property with its small, wooden single-story building. I naively thought that we would move after getting married. However, John's next words took me by surprise.
Come on in. This is going to be our home from now on, so don't be shy.
What? We would live in this house forever once we got married? I asked John, feeling faint.
We're going to live here? It seems like it's almost a 2-hour drive from my office. What? Hazel, you can quit your job after we're married. My earnings are more than enough for us to live on.
I was shocked by John's unexpected words. We had talked about our jobs before, but he never mentioned wanting me to quit after marriage.
But I told you I love my work. Why would you decide on your own that I should quit?
I questioned, but John, looking puzzled, answered.
Well, isn't it normal for a woman to stop working and take care of the home once she marries a man with a good income? My mother did the same, so I thought you'd understand without me having to say it.
I stood there, wide-eyed and stunned. I was shocked to encounter a man with such old-fashioned beliefs in this day and age. This place was far from both my company and my family's home. I'm currently living with my mom at our family home, so moving so far away would be quite inconvenient. I wanted to discuss this, but at that moment, my mind went blank and I couldn't find the words to say. And then there's this house. Sure, it's an old house, so it's well built, but there are places where the walls are crumbling, and the floors creak as you walk. The bathroom and toilet are outdated, and there aren't many rooms, which would be inconvenient if we had kids. Can we really live in such a house forever? Seeing my worried expression, John tried to reassure me. It's okay.
It might take some getting used to at first, but there's something great about traditional American houses.
You'll start to feel comfortable in no time. I wanted to say that wasn't the issue, but I couldn't find the words. For the time being, I decided not to say anything and asked to be taken home before it got too late.
You could stay over, it's far.
John casually suggested, but I was not in the mood to stay. That night, I lay in bed early, thinking under the covers. That's right, even if we live in John's family home at first, we can always move later. I've been working for a long time and have some savings, and surely John has enough to build a new home. I plan to discuss this with him next time. On my next day off, I brought up the idea of a new home with John. However, he didn't seem too keen on it.
Why? It's a waste to move when we already have a house.
To John, living in his own house was the only thing on his mind. Was I being unreasonable to care about convenience to my workplace and my family home? I felt a surge of irritation. Nevertheless, I didn't come to dislike John, and we went ahead with the wedding. Being the owner of a construction company, our wedding was grand. Of course, Mary attended too. Mary, flashy and looking young, stood out at the venue, attracting a lot of attention from the men. Even John, the groom, asked, "Is that beautiful woman Hazel's best friend?" Despite being the bride, I felt a tinge of jealousy towards Mary. The wedding went off without a hitch, and our married life began. John was comfortable living in his familiar home. I reluctantly quit my job and settled into home life, but I felt somewhat uneasy. So, I had made a plan. Then, one day, I received a phone call from the hospital where my mom goes. She had fallen ill suddenly and was admitted to the hospital. I rushed there and entered her room.
"Mom, are you okay?" "Hazel, I'm sorry to worry you."
Her complexion was not good. After talking to the doctor, it seemed her condition wasn't great, and she would need a long-term hospital stay. I went back home for a while to be with my mom. I packed my things and told John that I would be away for some time to take care of her. But John didn't seem too concerned about her. "Oh, is that so? Well, take your time." I frowned at John's nonchalant reaction. My mom's condition wasn't good, and I was there to take care of her, but John spoke as if I was just going back home for fun. Yet, when he saw my expression, he looked annoyed. What? Why the sour face? Did I say something wrong? No, it's nothing. Thinking about it, John grew up as a rich kid. So expecting him to be considerate was probably too much to ask for. So, without saying anything more, I quickly returned to the hospital. It's been almost 3 months since my mom was hospitalized. Her condition is still the same, and she needs my constant presence. What bothers me more is that John hasn't visited even once. Maybe he's still holding a grudge because I frowned at his words. If that's the case, it's pretty childish. My mom, lying in her hospital bed, looked at me with concern. Hazel, is John all right? You don't need to worry about me. Why don't you go home for a bit? It's okay, Mom. I do go home occasionally. I reassured her, not wanting to worry her further, but in reality, I was anxious. For the first month or so, I indeed went back home to check things. But John was sullen and hardly spoke to me. After doing some household chores, I would just return to the hospital. Gradually, I started to feel like John was managing on his own and that I wasn't needed at home. Lying awake at night while my mom slept, I wondered if things were okay this way. Months passed, with me lost in thought. Then, I got a call. It was from Mary when I checked my phone. Hello? Hazel, it's been a while. Just thought I'd check how you're doing.
Mary, it really has been a long time. How have you been?
I felt my spirits lift hearing Mary's voice after so long. However, I sensed a slight hesitation in her response. I'm fine. Okay. I replied, feeling the mood turn a bit heavy and unsure of what to say next. Then Mary broke the silence. Hey, when are you coming back home next? Huh? I was puzzled. I hadn't told Mary that I was away taking care of my mom. Yet, I wondered why she would ask such a thing. Nevertheless, since she had called after such a long time, I calmly asked back. What's up, Mary? Did you call for something specific? Oh? No, nothing in particular. Just wanted to hear your voice. As we talked, I heard a familiar male voice in the background calling, Hey, Mary. She abruptly exclaimed, and hurriedly ended the call. That voice, could it be? I felt a chill run down my spine. It had been over 3 months since I stopped going back home. A bad feeling started creeping in, so I decided to go home the next day. The next day, after the morning rounds at the hospital, I hurried back to my house. It was Sunday, so John should be home. When I arrived, I saw a bright red sports car parked in the garage, where my car was supposed to be. This car, it looked familiar. As I unlocked the front door and entered, I saw stylish high heels at the entrance. It seemed my hunch was right.
John! Are you here?
I called out from the entrance, and John came out, looking surprised.
Hazel! Why did you come back so suddenly? You should have called. Why? These shoes and the car in the garage. They're Mary's, aren't they?
Well. Mary just happened to stop by. John tried to explain, clearly flustered. Then Mary, wearing a casual jumpsuit-style dress, came out from the back.
Don't come out,
John said to her, but Mary looked unfazed. Why not? We have to talk about it sooner or later. Mary seemed to have given up hiding it. She stood there boldly, not showing any signs of remorse. It was unusual for the usually fashionable Mary to wear such a simple, ankle-length dress. As I thought about how her dress resembled a maternity dress, Mary revealed a surprising fact. I'm pregnant. Don't bother coming back.
What?
Didn't you hear me? I'm pregnant with John's baby.
That can't be.
Mary stood defiantly as she said this, while John sighed and looked down. Maybe he wished I had heard this in a more calm state. It's your fault, Hazel. You left your husband alone while taking care of your mother. You brought this on yourself. Mary said triumphantly. But I didn't flinch. Seeing my calm demeanor, Mary pouted and said, "What's with the act? I heard you didn't like this house." "I'm fine with it, though. The old house has a large yard, no nosy neighbors, and most importantly, John is kind and wealthy." John, maybe feeling emboldened by being praised, suddenly changed his attitude. "I fell for Mary at first sight at the wedding. So, I thought I'd ask you to leave since you dislike this house, and I'd live with Mary." "Exactly, and John even looked up my contact from the guest list and called me. He said you weren't coming back and asked me to come over. I was hesitant at first, but how could I say no when he needed me so much?" "Ah, I see," I replied nonchalantly to Mary's boastful story.
"Humph. You're just pretending to be strong. You must be upset. I'll say it again, I'm pregnant with John's baby. Don't come back here anymore."
As Mary said this, I smiled and decided to take her up on her offer.
"Really? I'd be happy to."
My unexpected reaction left both John and Mary stunned. "Hazel, what are you saying? Aren't you mad that I cheated?"
"Well, I was surprised at first, but I'm not really mad. Besides, I already have a new house." "A new house? What are you talking about?"
John looked bewildered, so I explained further.
"Actually, I've been looking for a new house ever since we got married. Sure, we could live in this house at first, but what about when we have kids? There are no schools around here."
Mary's face showed a sudden realization. She probably hadn't thought about schools when she got pregnant.
"Why didn't you discuss such an important matter with me?"
"Because you said you didn't want to move from here.
So, I went to real estate agents and looked online by myself. But now, it's none of your concern." "What do you mean?"
John asked, still clueless. He seemed not to grasp that after his affair and getting her pregnant, it was impossible for us to move together. I continued speaking calmly, despite my thoughts.
"You cheated and even got her pregnant, so just stay in this house with Mary. You're well off, so you can send the kid to a distant private school and drive them every day."
As I spoke, John nodded as if he understood. Mary, surprised by my calm demeanor, asked, "Hazel, you're unusually agreeable. How come you're accepting my relationship with John so easily?" "Well, I just can't trust John anymore. He never once visited my mom, who's been hospitalized for a long time. So, I decided to live with my mom in the new house. I've arranged for home nursing care through the hospital."
"Are you really not mad about the affair? You won't get back at me later?"
John asked, still only thinking about himself. He was the epitome of a sheltered person, raised in a pampered environment. "Don't worry. I'm not that sneaky," I replied with a slight smile. I knew that I didn't need to punish them, they would face their own disaster soon enough. Then John and I got divorced. After the divorce, I moved to our new house with my mom. The house was made barrier-free, so my mom could recuperate in peace. It was close to the hospital, so help was quickly available, which reassured me. John was living in the old house with Mary, starting their married life. Mary's belly grew, but there were no nearby hospitals. John had to drive her for over an hour for checkups. They could have had a happy marriage under normal circumstances. After a while, John called me.
"Hey! Why do we have to leave the house?"
I thought, so, the day has finally come. "Did your uncle come?"
"Yeah, he did. Did you know and hide it from me?"
John's uncle was his father's younger brother.
"Oh?
John, you should have known. The house is owned by your uncle."
"Ah."
Apparently, John had forgotten that and had been living there as if it was his own. I had learned during a visit to John's relatives before our marriage that his father, on his deathbed, entrusted the house to his brother, John's uncle. Apparently, even though John was the heir, he was considered too unreliable to inherit the property. In essence, John was living there with his uncle's consent.
"I completely forgot about that. But yesterday, my uncle suddenly came and said, I had told your wife we're selling this land. Why didn't you tell me something so important?"
Hearing that, I couldn't help but laugh inside, thinking, John's uncle is quite an actor. I had told the uncle everything that led to our divorce. He was furious and promised to give John a piece of his mind. I'm sorry. When I was about to tell you about the house being sold, you got Mary pregnant. I thought, maybe I should leave it to you guys to figure things out. But it's okay, isn't it? You're financially well off, so you can move anywhere, right? About that. John's voice suddenly became gloomy. I knew what he was about to say, but pretended not to and asked, what happened? I've been demoted from my position as president. My uncle said I was unreliable, and the employees wouldn't follow me. He told me to start over as an ordinary employee, so my salary will be cut in half. Oh, really? I said, but I already knew all of this from John's uncle. Mary is furious. She wanted to remodel the house into a spacious mansion. She hasn't spoken to me since last night when she heard we had to leave the house and my salary was reduced. What should I do? John sounded almost tearful. It was clear that Mary was with him for the money. Well, I can't help you with that anymore, so you'll have to figure it out yourself. What? Wait. John tried to hold me back, but I nonchalantly ended the call. The next moment, Mary called. I didn't want to answer, knowing what she would probably say, but I figured she would keep calling persistently. So, reluctantly, I picked up. Mary's voice came out like a torrent. What's the meaning of this, Hazel? It's your fault. I thought I married a rich man. Her words were as expected. Well, that's not my concern anymore. John is a kind husband to you, isn't he? It's not like he's unemployed. I can't accept this. You knew, didn't you? That we had to leave the house. And you kept quiet. That's so unfair. What would have happened if I had told you earlier? You would have left John if you couldn't have your ideal life. That's not fair to the baby, is it? Mary had no reply to that. Whatever your situation, you're starting a family now. You need to pull yourself together. After telling her that, I quickly ended the call. I had no resentment left for losing John. I just realized I had no eye for men. John and Mary were forced to move and apparently went to live with Mary's parents. Her parents were angry at her for marrying John, but they welcomed them for the sake of their unborn grandchild. Years later, one day, John and Mary, along with their child, showed up at my place. I hadn't told them where I moved, but they had followed me from town and found out. I wondered why they went to such lengths. Hazel, are you there? We were nearby for our child's kindergarten admission results and thought to drop by. Mary said pretentiously as she barged in. Still flamboyant in makeup and fashion, even as a mother. I didn't want to meet her, but I didn't know what she would say if I was rude, so I humored her. As always, huh? So, how did it go? I asked, not really interested, but knowing she would say something anyway. Listen to this. Our child got into the top kindergarten in the area. So you came to brag? Well, congratulations. She had clearly come just to show off. That's right. This child is excellent, just like his father. Plus, he's got my good looks, so he made a great impression at the interview. Mary continued bragging on and on. Oh, that's nice for you. I replied sarcastically. Mary didn't seem to like my tone and glared at me. Really, I thought I was going to see hell because of someone, but now we're a happy family. Having a family and getting married is great, isn't it, John? Yeah, that's right. John finally spoke up, standing quietly behind her. Their son, who indeed resembled Mary, looked at me with a snooty expression. Seemingly inheriting not only her looks, but also her prideful character. So, the top kindergarten is... Ahaha. Hazel, being single, you wouldn't know about kindergartens, right? It's Wilson Kindergarten nearby. Mary said disdainfully, and I immediately retorted. Single? I'm already remarried. John and Mary looked shocked.
You're lying. Isn't this house where you live with your mother?
Yes, but I live here with my husband too. At that moment, my husband Thomas appeared.
Are these guests? Please, come in.
You are. They exclaimed in surprise upon seeing Thomas. Thomas recognized them and said,
Ah, you must be the parents of Michael who came for the interview the other day. You were the interviewer?
Yes, I apologize for not introducing myself earlier. I am Thomas Wilson, the principal of Wilson Kindergarten. You're Hazel's friends, I see. She's always been so helpful. John and Mary were stunned to learn Thomas was the principal of the kindergarten.
Wait, you, the principal of the kindergarten, are Hazel's husband? Yes, that's right. I can't believe someone like you married the principal of a prestigious private kindergarten. Where did you meet someone like that?
Mary sneered at me. But I had worked hard to change from my past, so I wasn't someone for Mary to look down upon anymore.
We met through work. My company was contracted for the kindergarten's reconstruction project.
Yes, I was impressed by how hard she worked, so I was the one who initiated our relationship. Thomas added sheepishly.
Right, let me introduce you properly. This is my ex-husband, John, and his wife Mary, my former best friend who took him from me. Hey, don't introduce us like that. That's right. Don't say such things in front of the child.
The two of them, facing the principal of the kindergarten their child was about to join, looked embarrassed and flustered. It was, after all, a prestigious private kindergarten with a distinguished history. The revelation of their family's complicated circumstances must have been unsettling. Mary nervously asked Thomas.
So, about the admission. Is it cancelled?
In response to Mary's question, Thomas tilted his head slightly with a stern look but then returned to his usual expression and replied. Let's see how your child does in the kindergarten environment.
So, he's admitted?
John and Mary looked relieved. However, it seemed John and Mary still didn't understand how challenging life at the kindergarten could be. Their experience there turned into a disaster. The reason? It was a kindergarten that had strong parent connections. Any negative rumor spreads quickly. So, the gossip that Mary stole my ex-husband, the principal's wife's, quickly reached everyone's ears and spread like wildfire. Given that most parents in our kindergarten are keen on strict education, John and Mary were quickly isolated from the other parents. Such parental behavior also affects the children. Poor Michael, innocent in all this, became isolated from his friends and cried daily, saying he wanted to quit kindergarten. Eventually, they had to leave the kindergarten, and John's family disappeared from our lives. Later, Thomas heard from another kindergarten principal that John's family had to enroll Michael in a public kindergarten. But the same rumors spread there too, as many locals attended. John and Mary's situation in the local community worsened. Before I knew it, they had left Michael at home and gone somewhere far away. Recently, I've heard that Mary's parents attend kindergarten events and pickups. Being well liked by the neighbors, and ensuring Michael can attend kindergarten comfortably. Even Mary's once indulgent parents seem to have given up on her, choosing to raise Michael themselves. I was worried about Michael but felt relieved hearing this from Thomas. After a while, Mary's parents came to apologize for everything. I'm truly sorry for the late apology. We wanted to bring Mary along, but she absolutely refused to come. What? Mary is back at your house? I was surprised to hear Mary was back at her parents' house. I thought she and John were missing. According to her parents, unable to endure their impoverished life, John and Mary divorced, and only Mary returned home. However, she was not welcomed by Michael, who couldn't see her as a mother anymore. Time passed, and I gave birth to our long-awaited daughter. I made many mom friends at the local maternity hospital. Though I cut a tie with a childhood friend, I now spend enjoyable times with moms in similar situations. Thomas, taking paternity leave, is an excellent father. I feel incredibly happy now, maybe the happiest I've ever been. I plan to enjoy parenting, surrounded by a loving family and good friends. Like my mother, who raised me alone, I want to shower my daughter with love. Even if there was a time when I, like myself, took a wrong turn, I will trust my daughter, believe in my family and the people around me, and most importantly, have faith in myself. As a mother, I vow to live strongly and lovingly from now on. Today's payday, right? Where's the money?
I gave you the money and you don't even say thank you? I feel like you haven't said it once in 18 years. Are you grateful? Respecting your parents is a given. Grateful? Why would I be? You should be thankful to us for giving birth to you and raising you.
I see. Mom, you think it's only natural to take my money. What's with you today? A bit rebellious, aren't you? What's wrong? Something happens? You're acting strange. Asking if I'm grateful for getting money, that's weird. What's that about? You're the eldest daughter and we let you go to college. It's only natural for you to be dutiful. Do you think the air you breathe?
I think it's strange. Why do I have to give almost all my salary? And why don't all three of you work? How rude. We do work. Just because you're the only one with a full-time job, do you look down on us who work part-time or have temp jobs? You're just being selfish, wanting to keep your money for luxuries. Aren't you the ungrateful one?
If you don't like it, leave. I doubt big sis, who's always cooped up at home except for work, could live properly on her own. I've been giving my family money and supporting them for 18 years. My mind was so warped that I didn't think it was strange. But now, it's different. I clearly see it's wrong.
Then, I'll gladly leave.
Just leaving will be enough to make my parents and sister regret it. A month later, sure enough, the frantic calls came. I'm Mirabelle. A 40-year-old single, still living at home. People often think I'm mooching off my parents because I'm still at home at this age. But that's not the case. There's a reason I've stayed at home until this age. To explain, we need to go back to when I was in elementary school. When I was 7, my sister was born.
Ah, she's so cute.
Mirabelle, you're a big sister now. Make sure to protect your little sister.
Got it. I'll be a responsible big sister.
I have this memory of Dad and Mom, Sean and Sally, being overjoyed at the birth of their second child, Mary. Dad kept poking Mary's cheeks, making her cry, and getting scolded by Mom. He couldn't help himself. I also thought I'd play a lot with my sister once she grew up. But I quickly came to dislike my sister.
Mom, I can't find my gym bag.
It's where it always is. Look for it yourself, you're a big sister now. The gym clothes bag is always hanging on a hook in the living room shelf. I asked Mom about it because it wasn't on the hook, but she responded in a strong tone, as if I had lost it. Usually, when this happens, the bag turns up in a drawer. Mom sometimes mistakenly puts it away with someone else's clothes. I searched through various drawers and finally found the bag, but Mom showed up at the worst possible time.
Hey! Don't mess up the drawers.
Sorry. You're a big sister now, don't make extra work for me. Even as a grade schooler, I knew this was unfair. But when scolded by a parent, most children feel at fault, even if they're not. I refolded the disarrayed clothes in the drawer and quietly said sorry to Mom's back. Since my sister Mary was born, Mom started to scold me, and I began to see her as scary. I also became afraid of Dad. Did you buy another toy for Mary? It doesn't matter how many she has.
Lucky her, Dad. Buy me something too.
Yeah, next time. You said that last time. When will you buy it?
Shut up. When I say next time, it's next time. If you keep complaining, I won't buy anything.
Dad's shouting made Mary cry, and he frantically tried to soothe her. I was on the verge of tears, but he ignored me. Getting scolded by Mom was bad enough, but Dad's yelling was scarier because he was a man. Dad became a symbol of fear for me. And Mom never took my side.
Mom!
It's your fault for nagging Dad. You're the big sister, you should be patient. Help me wash the dishes now. Mom handed me a soapy sponge, expecting me to wash the dinner dishes. As the big sister, I took the sponge and washed the plates with practiced movements. Thanks, I'll leave the rest to you. Once I started washing, Mom left to join Mary. I continued, listening to my parents' cheerful voices from behind. It's common for the elder child to feel neglected or be asked to help more when a younger sibling is born. Parenting is hard, and sometimes parents have no spare energy, so it's understandable to some extent. Usually, things naturally resolve as the children grow up. I convinced myself it was just while Mary was little and decided to endure it. But in our family, things didn't change even as my sister Mary grew up. In fact, the difference in how our parents treated me and Mary only got bigger.
Hey, Dad, I really wanted this dress.
What kind is it this time? If it's expensive, we can't buy it.
It's this one, on this page.
Looks pricey again.
But I really want it. Please buy it for me.
All right. I'll talk to your mom, and we can go buy it together next time.
Yay! Thanks.
Mary was happily waving the magazine around. I never got anything I wanted except for birthdays and Christmas. But if Mary just asked, our parents would have bought it for her. Once, I tried asking like her, but was immediately shut down with "you need to be patient," so I didn't bother asking again. As Mary grew older, through middle and high school, our parents' favoritism got worse. By the way, the washing machine stopped. Can you hang the laundry? Wanting to be seen as a good sister, I obediently went to hang the laundry. This continued, and I found myself always trying to please our parents. It made me so self-conscious that I couldn't relax even at home. Feeling tired even at home, when I was about to start college, I finally spoke up. Mom, Dad, I was thinking of living alone when I start college. Is that okay? I'll work part-time to pay for my expenses. Eh? Live alone? Can you handle that? That's right. And we'd be worried about our daughter living alone. You're just saying that because you'd miss Mirabelle, aren't you? Hey, don't say that. When they opposed my living alone, I didn't push it and back down immediately. I thought they only cared about Mary. But I was wrong. They were concerned about me, and Dad didn't want to be separated from me. Realizing this eased my long-held anxiety, and I felt lighter. My wanting to leave home must have hit them hard, because after that, they became kinder. Mom stopped making me do housework, and Dad started asking if I wanted anything. I thought I didn't need to please them anymore, but once I started college, they reverted back to their old ways. Why isn't breakfast ready? Sorry. I was up late doing a report. What? No breakfast? What are you doing? We're paying a lot for your tuition, you should at least manage the housework. Wait, no breakfast? Hurry up, sis. Sorry, I'm in a rush. Rushed, I carelessly reached into the toaster to grab the hot toast. No matter how busy I was, my family of 3 never helped out. They'd usually just sit on the living room sofa, chatting and watching TV, waiting for breakfast to be served at the table in front of them. And my chores weren't limited to breakfast. I was basically responsible for all the household duties, including dinner, cleaning, and laundry. I thought my parents were against me living alone because they cared about me, but I realized I was mistaken. So, before graduating college, I decided to finally leave home. Mom, Dad, I'm going to move out after I graduate. Why would you say that? We thought we'd continue living as a family of 4. Isn't moving out something you do when you get married? That's right. So, you're just gonna leave us after college? We cared for you and paid for your education, and now you're just cutting ties like a detached rocket. I expected my parents to oppose my leaving since they treated me like a maid. So this time, I was determined to stand my ground. However, my parents started crying. Mom begged me not to leave, and Dad accused me of being heartless, ready to leave once I was done using them. Their crying made me feel guilty, and I couldn't go through with moving out. That was a turning point for me. Not leaving home then made my life harder. After graduating, I started working in insurance sales. Though I was no longer a student and had busy days, the household chores were still mostly dumped on me. And with me working, my parents and sister Mary started asking for things.
You're getting your first paycheck soon, right? What are you gonna buy for us?
Eh?
I know a store I want to visit. Sis, you're gonna buy something for me too, right?
A family meeting about what to buy with my first paycheck started. But it seemed I had no seat at that table. Watching them discuss around the living room table, I felt like my family was very far away. From then on, with every paycheck, my parents and Mary kept asking me for things. Well, it might have been cute if it was just asking. By the third paycheck, it turned into just give us the money so we can buy what we want. The process of buying and giving them things was even skipped. It's rude to just ask for money, even from family, so I had every right to be angry. But since I always tried to keep my parents happy since I was little, I couldn't yell at mom and ended up giving $200 each to my parents. Sis, me too. Somehow, the habit of pleasing extended to Mary as well. In this house, it seemed that my parents and sister were on the same level, and I was beneath them. I couldn't refuse my middle school sister Mary and gave her $100. When I first started working, amounts like $200 or $100 seemed manageable. But the amounts they demanded kept increasing: $600, $1,000, $1,400. Here's this month's. Okay, good job this month, too. When I handed the envelope containing my paycheck to mom, she took it from me as casually as if I were handing her the TV remote. As a new employee, my salary was about $4,000. A year into my job, I was handing almost all of it to mom. Every month, I was left with just about $400. With barely enough money for necessities, I couldn't afford to go out for meals with friends, visit the salon for a haircut, or buy cosmetics. So, I ended up not going anywhere, just commuting between home and work on weekdays. On weekends, I stayed in, leading a life of seclusion. Because I couldn't afford to keep up appearances, rumors at work started about me possibly being in debt or financially supporting a man. Unable to admit that I was giving all my money to my family, I just ignored the whispers I overheard at work. Lacking the courage and willpower to change my situation, 18 years passed, and I turned 40. But it's not like I did nothing in those 18 years. I mustered a little courage and made some small attempts. I was wondering if I could give a little less money each month.
What? What did you say?
Dad glared at me, his face inches from mine. As if he might grab me and hit me.
Never mind, it's nothing.
Dad snorted and walked away, and I realized I had been holding my breath, exhaling deeply. Whenever I hesitated to give money, my parents would either cry, intimidate me, or suddenly become nice, always managing to get the entire salary from me. After 18 years at the company, my salary had increased to about $6,000. It was a bit higher than my peers. This was the result of my hard work, but the reason for my effort wasn't something to be proud of. Can't you increase your salary more? You're in insurance sales, doesn't it depend on your performance? You should try harder.
I am doing my best. Enough backtalk, just bring in more money.
I worked hard and increased my salary. But the extra went straight to my family, leaving me with the same $400 each month. My misplaced efforts to work harder not only resulted in a higher salary, but there was another change. About 10 years ago, my parents quit their jobs and started working part-time and temp jobs. Though they were technically working, they weren't serious about it and didn't take many shifts, so while I worked hard, they were mostly lazy at home, not even doing household chores. The average living expenses for a family of 4 are about $6,000 a month, so my salary could just about cover it. As a result, my parents used my income for living expenses and treated their own earnings like pocket money for students. I'm home.
Welcome back.
When I returned from work, My parents were lounging on the living room sofa, eating sweets. Their spending might not seem extravagant to others, but to me, who's left with only $400 a month, their casual enjoyment of convenience store sweets felt incredibly luxurious. "What are you eating?" "We bought some for you too. It's in the fridge." Just as I returned from work and was thinking about preparing dinner, my sister came into the living room. Despite knowing I was about to make dinner, she took out a pudding from the fridge that cost about $6. When I opened the fridge to start preparing dinner, my pudding was gone. My sister, who is 33 years old, enjoys eating pudding with our parents. However, like my parents, she's a part-time worker without a stable job. After graduating from high school, my sister didn't pursue further education or employment and has been living off our parents. Since my parents are living off me, it's practically the same as my sister living off me as well. From an outsider's perspective, my life might seem abnormal, filled with frustration and discontent. But having always tried to keep my family happy since I was young, I lack the courage to break free from this environment. I had resigned myself to a life dedicated solely to my parents and sister. Then, one day, a significant turning point arrived. My company introduced an in-house counselor as part of an effort to improve the work environment. However, it's always hard to use something new. So, the company ordered one person from each department to try a counseling session. When my boss asked for volunteers, everyone looked away. In the midst of a busy workday, no one wants to attend counseling if they don't have problems. Whenever there's something bothersome, everyone's gaze turns to me. Plain-looking and known for not refusing tasks, I'm always the sacrificial lamb. "I'll go." I raised my arm, feeling as heavy as lead, volunteering for counseling. In a meeting space at the corner of the office, I started my counseling session. "Any troubles with human relations?" "I just had one." Of course, I couldn't say something that would make enemies of everyone at work. "No, nothing at all." Throughout the session, I answered the counselor's questions about work and the office environment tersely, eager to get back to work. But one question made me pause. "How is your relationship with your family?" I did a double take at the counselor. This was an in-house counseling session, and I didn't expect it to delve too deep into personal matters. Getting too personal could even cause problems. Yet, the counselor asked about my family. Clearly, they were good at their job. They must have sensed that I had issues outside of work. Thinking I might never have another chance to open up, I explained everything to the counselor, from the time my sister was born to the present day. The counselor listened intently, but as my story progressed, a deep frown formed on their brow. After I finished my story, the counselor paused for a moment before speaking to me. "That sounds like a form of DV."
DV? Domestic violence?
"Yes. The situation with the money could be seen as economic violence. But the real issue is your relationship with your parents." I was so shocked by the unexpected words that I forgot I was at work and raised my voice. Violence comes in many forms, while physical abuse like hitting or kicking is commonly thought of. There's also psychological abuse like emotional harassment or power harassment. In my case, it seems like economic violence involving money. Moreover, the problem seems to be the process that led me to give money to my parents. Instilled with fear and the desire not to be disliked by my family from a young age, I've been controlled by my family's actions. Occasionally, they would apologize and make me feel guilty or act kindly to make me feel needed, keeping me from leaving. This is a classic case of DV. A mix of reward and punishment, and I've been under mental control by my family, unable to break free. But surely this is a bit of an exaggeration? I'm giving them money, but it's not that bad, right? You seem unable to objectively judge your situation. At my response, the counselor started writing with a pen they hadn't moved until then. The sound of the pen scribbling made me anxious.
"What should I do?"
"Don't rush. First, think about not how you want your family to see you, but how you want to be yourself." I frowned at the counselor's advice. I had never thought about what I wanted to be. I continued working that day with a sense of unease. The unease remained with me on the train ride home. Looking at my reflection in the train window, I saw my unkempt hair and tired face. My clothes were wrinkled. Seeing myself like that, I thought I should take better care of my appearance. But with only $400 to spend each month, I couldn't afford to spend it all on grooming. Then I wondered, why should I limit myself to $400? I'm the one working. Why am I giving my family money? With each jolt of the train, the fog in my mind seemed to clear a bit more. To fully clear the fog, I decided to confirm something when I got home. Today's payday, right? Where's the money? As soon as I got home, Mom, without a greeting, demanded the money. She was almost expressionless, even though she was about to receive $6,000. The fog in my mind hadn't completely lifted, so I handed over the money as usual. But with the fog slightly cleared, I was able to observe Mom's reaction more calmly. Hey, can't you earn a bit more? You are working properly, right? I gave you the money and you don't even say thank you? I feel like you haven't said it once in 18 years. Are you grateful? Respecting your parents is just natural. Grateful? Of course not. You should be the one thankful for being born and raised by us. So, Mom, you think it's only natural to take my money? What's with you today? A bit rebellious, aren't you? Mom stepped closer to me, glaring sharply. I kept my gaze fixed on her without looking away. It was the first time I really saw the intimidating look on her face. As she approached, I couldn't help but think that she could do with a bit more care in shaping her eyebrows. Hearing our exchange, Dad and my sister, who were in another room, came into the living room. What's going on? Something happens? You're acting strange. Asking if I'm grateful for getting money, that's weird. What are you talking about? You're the eldest daughter, and we let you go to college. It's only natural for you to be dutiful. Do you think the air you breathe? Dad's attempt at humor made Mom and my sister laugh. Before, I would have thought it strange that I was the only one not laughing. But now, it's different. I think it's strange. Why do I have to give almost all my salary? And why don't all three of you work? How rude. We do work. Just because you're the only one with a full-time job, do you look down on us who work part-time or have temp jobs? You're just being selfish, wanting to keep your money for luxuries. Aren't you the ungrateful one? If you don't like it, leave. I doubt Big Sis, who's always cooped up at home except for work, could live properly on her own. I began to give up on reasoning with my parents and sister. They barely work, and yet they think it's fine to live off my money. I know they aren't living extravagantly, but they're comfortable using my earnings. I've been secluded at home because I've been supporting the three of them. But they might be right that I can't live on my own. After all, for the past 18 years, I've only shuttled between home and work, letting my parents handle all financial matters. Therefore, I probably don't know things that would surprise others. Embarrassingly, at 40, I don't even know how to set up automatic payments for the electricity bill. Starting to live alone would surely lead to many embarrassing moments. It would be better to stay at home. I would have thought it before. But now, the more I hear their words, the more I feel an anger rekindling inside me that I thought had disappeared since childhood. I realized my fists were clenched tightly, and my face felt hot. The fog in my mind had cleared completely. Do I really need to keep giving money to this family? Why do I even have to give them money? I finally realized the obvious and mustered the courage I never had before. Then, I'll gladly leave. I only took my work bag that was at my feet and started to leave the living room. Wait, are you really leaving? We said too much, I apologize. You'll be back soon anyway, stop being stubborn. Why are you saying you'll leave? Don't say such sad things. As I tried to leave, my sister Mary showed a panicked expression, Dad apologized, and Mom cried, clinging to me. They probably think I'm easy to manipulate and will reconsider if they act this way. This is the reward part of the reward and punishment cycle the counselor talked about. It's so clear when I'm calm. I felt dizzy with shame at how naive I'd been. Then, take care.
Wait, you're really going?
Apparently, my actual leaving was unexpected, and all three of them froze, speechless. This might be the last time I see their faces, so I etched their stunned expressions in my memory before leaving the house. Leaving the house was such a simple act. Such a simple thing will make my parents and sister regret what they've done to me. A month later, I finally started living on my own, a dream I'd had for 18 years. The initial anxiety is just that, initial. I got used to living alone and enjoyed my newfound freedom. However, my phone kept ringing these past few days, disrupting my mood. After work, I checked my smartphone and saw over 100 missed calls. They were all from my parents and sister Mary. I could have blocked their calls, but curious about their situation after a month, I decided to answer.
Finally, you answered. Hey sis, where are you? Help me.
Mary's voice was half crying, and I could tell she was genuinely in trouble, unlike before. Their situation was pretty much what I had imagined. The $6,000 I used to give them every month was their livelihood. With that gone, they now had to earn their own living expenses. But none of them had been serious about working, so they couldn't suddenly increase their shifts. Realizing they couldn't survive without jobs, they hurried to find employment. However, with a 10-year gap and being around 65 years old, my parents couldn't find work. And Mary, without stable jobs since high school graduation, also struggled to find a job. They had spent every penny I gave them each month on living expenses and used their earnings for leisure. A family that lived like this for 18 years couldn't possibly have savings. Moreover, they quit their part-time jobs in a rush to focus on job hunting. So, just a month later, they were in a dire situation and turned to me for help. Well, that's tough. Good luck then. Of course, I had no intention of helping them, so I just listened and hung up. Looking back, I can't even understand why I kept giving them money. Their thinking and actions were far from normal, yet I continued to appease them. I was in a mentally distorted state, unable to make sound judgments. The control and manipulation of the mind are terrifying. While my family might be struggling, I'm living comfortably on my own. I'm relieved to be free from my parents' control and thrilled to be able to spend my salary on myself, something so basic yet new to me. From now on, I'll prioritize what I want and live life on my terms. For starters, I plan to go shopping on my day off tomorrow. Get out if you're not going to work, you good for nothing.
Quit being a parasite and stop being a mother right now.
I never knew they were the type of people who could say such awful things so casually. I just wanted to create a happy family filled with courage and happiness with Jack and Anne. Where did I go wrong?
Understood.
I realized I couldn't continue living with these two. I decided to divorce Jack and return to my previous life. But the moment I went back to my old life, it's unbelievable how they suddenly reached out, as if they had flipped a switch. Did they think I would just do as they said? If so, they really need to stop taking me for granted. I know all too well that it's not me they want, but my money. I am Aubrey Edwards. I used to work as a sales clerk for a local company, but now I'm a full-time homemaker. Having experienced financial struggles in my childhood when my family's business faltered, I'm admittedly a bit strict about money. My twin sister Amelia is the same way. Both of us are determined not to struggle with money like we did in our childhood, which I believe has significantly influenced our future. Besides my sales clerk job, I also have a business I run with Amelia, and it's doing fairly well. Between my outside job and the business with Amelia, my personal life had been neglected, but then a turning point came. It happened at the office where I worked as a sales clerk. One day, an insurance salesman came in. Normally, I wouldn't pay much attention as we were already covered, but I noticed the pen he was using. This was my first encounter with Jack, who would later become my husband.
That pen, it's from that theme park, right? I really wanted it too, and went there once, but couldn't get it.
The pen he had was a limited edition from a famous theme park, hard to come by. It had been a hot topic back then for its cuteness and limited availability, now traded at premium prices. I also went to the theme park back then eager to get that pen, but missed out on it in a lottery, a frustrating memory.
Yes, my daughter wanted it, so I went along. Both she and I won the lottery. It's kind of funny, me using this big body of mine with this pen, isn't it?
He said, laughing heartily. His laughter and the way he spoke were somehow memorable.
Not at all. Oh, you have a daughter? Yes, I'm a single father. And you know, this is the first time I've had such an engaging conversation using this pen. Really? I'm a big fan of that character, and I got carried away. Sorry, we're at work. No problem at all. Oh, by the way, my name is Jack Edwards.
That's how we started talking because of one pen. He became in charge of my workplace, and since that day, he began showing up now and then. As we talked about trivial things, something big happened.
I know it might seem a bit off for a guy with a child to say this, but I just had to share my feelings with you, Aubrey. Would you consider dating me? Me? As I've been talking with you, Aubrey, I've found myself wanting to know more about you. Sorry for being so sudden. No, it's fine. I enjoy talking with you, Jack. I'd be happy to.
Then, Jack's face lit up with a bright smile.
Great. I was worried you'd say no. No, not at all. Looking forward to it.
From there, our relationship progressed smoothly. After dating for 5 years, it was naturally time to start thinking about marriage.
Aubrey, would you marry me? Yes, I'd love to. I've been hoping to be with you forever, so. I'm just so happy.
I couldn't hide my surprise and joy. He proposed at a lovely restaurant during Christmas. Having led a life distant from men before meeting Jack, it felt surreal that this was happening to me. But as I stood there, unable to hide my astonishment, Jack got serious.
Aubrey, there's something I need to talk to you about before we get married. What? What's up all of a sudden?
Seeing Jack's unusually serious face made me anxious.
As you know, I have a daughter. If we're going to get married, I'd like you to be her mother. Me, a mother.
I was 35 then. Being in the prime of my career and focused solely on work, I remember being taken aback when suddenly asked to become a mother. I never really felt maternal, and the idea of suddenly becoming someone's mother was confusing.
Sorry for springing this on you. But I'm serious about our future. My daughter is almost 10. She can handle most things in her life. Wait a minute, please. I knew you had a daughter, but me, suddenly becoming a mother? I mean, we've played together before, sure, but I also have my job. And said she'd be happy if you became her mother. And please, don't quit your job.
Jack seemed desperate to convince me.
Your life won't change much, Aubrey. I just want you to be there for and as her mother.
Normally, being asked this before marriage might make someone reconsider. But I was wrong. His candidness in sharing all this with me must mean he's genuinely serious about our future together. I ended up convincing myself that this had to be the case.
Look at me. You're this serious about our future, right? Of course. Jack's precious daughter is important to me too. I'll do whatever I can. Thank you so much.
That's how we ended up getting married. I had met Anne a few times before, and she seemed like a typical, everyday girl.
Anne? Yes, I'm Anne. Dad told me about you. You're Aubrey, right?
Anne said with a smile, and I thought she was really cute. I also felt she was a very nice kid, and I had no problem living with her as a family.
I'm going to marry your dad, Anne. I wanted to come and say hello. I'm so happy that someone as wonderful as you, Aubrey, is going to be my mom.
I can't deny that this exchange made me feel really good. I was determined to be happy. With that resolve, I decided to marry Jack and become Anne's mother. However, it didn't take long for me to realize that this feeling was a mistake in the first place. The days after our marriage were happy. At first, I was worried about marrying someone with a child, but it turned out to be needless worry. And was a well-behaved child and didn't need much attention. She mostly took care of herself, so there wasn't much for me to do. Around that time, I was assigned to a project that could lead to a promotion. If my proposal was accepted in the upcoming competition, I might become a section manager, so I was a bit on edge. I was in the final push, thinking I might make it, when Anne said something unexpected.
Aubrey, can I talk to you for a sec? What's up, Anne? Well, you might think it's selfish, but I really want a mom at home.
Watching Anne glance at me apologetically, I felt like my heart was being squeezed. I might have been making her feel lonely without realizing it. It made me feel helpless.
That's right. You're always alone when you come back home. I'm used to being alone, but sometimes I just feel this tightness in my chest. That's why I want a mom to be there.
With a big promotion at stake, I had been working overtime until late at night. There were days I caught the last train home for 3 consecutive nights. Lately, I hadn't had a proper look at Jack or Anne. With Jack often away on business trips or working late, I realized I had been making Anne feel very lonely. And the fact that she called me Mom filled me with joy.
Mom, you mean me? Who else? You're my mom, aren't you?
Seeing Anne's bashful smile, I wanted to protect her happiness till the end. Sure, I liked my job, and a promotion would mean a higher salary. But work isn't everything in life. I seriously thought about what I truly wanted to protect. And then, I made a decision. I'm going to quit my job and be a full-time homemaker. I want to take care of our home and not let Anne feel lonely anymore.
Thank you, I'm so happy.
I was a bit worried about what Jack would think, but he surprisingly agreed.
That's great for Anne. And don't worry, my earnings are enough to support the 3 of us. We'll be just fine.
Hearing this and seeing Jack laugh heartily, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. However, the peaceful days didn't last long. I was getting used to life as a full-time homemaker when Jack came home one day, visibly irritated.
Welcome back. What's wrong?
Nothing. Saying so, he marched straight to the bedroom with heavy footsteps. Without even taking a bath, he stayed in the bedroom, not coming out. His irritated demeanor suggested something had happened at work. But since he was sulking alone, I had no idea what it was. The next evening at dinner, Jack finally opened up, revealing the reason for his frustration.
I'm definitely better at my job, so why didn't they choose me? Did something happen at work? Listen to this. I'm more capable and have been with the company longer, so why wasn't I chosen? I was almost going to be promoted to department head.
As he said this, he was banging his hands on the table. Summarizing Jack's story, there was a chance he or a colleague of his age might be promoted to department head. But in the end, his colleague got the position.
That guy, he joined midway, leaves early without doing overtime, and yet, why him? I've been contributing to this company for decades since graduating college. It must be tough, but people do notice your work. You'll have another chance.
However, my words seemed to irritate him even more. He glared at me with a furious expression.
What do you know? Spouting such nonsense.
Since that day, Jack started taking his anger out on me. One evening, I prepared dinner and waited for Jack, but he didn't come home for a long time. Worried because there was no contact, I approached him when he finally arrived.
Welcome back. I was worried since it's late. What about dinner? It's late, so maybe tomorrow. What are you thinking? It's Friday, and I had a business dinner. Can't you figure that out? That's why you can't do a job properly.
He sighed heavily and went to the bedroom. Whenever he's like this, he wants to be alone and locks the bedroom door. Since our bed is in the bedroom, I can't enter when Jack locks it. I used to ask him to unlock the door, but lately, I've given up. Jack must be struggling with his own issues. Trying to convince myself he needs space, I prepared to sleep on the sofa. As I started feeling tired from being affected by Jack's mood swings and sulkiness, I noticed a change in and to.
Good morning, Anne. You stayed up late last night, are you okay?
Stop it. Annoying first thing in the morning. She muttered under her breath and walked away.
Wait, what about breakfast?
She increasingly acted as if she couldn't hear me. I thought it was just a phase and watched over her, but her behavior became too much. I once tried to discuss it with Jack, but he didn't listen at all.
Jack, have you noticed anything odd about Anne lately? Will you stop? That's your job as a mother. Neglecting your duties as a mother, that's just pathetic.
I'm not neglecting anything. That's why I wanted to talk to you.
I'm tired because, unlike you, I work. Don't drag me into unnecessary stuff.
Saying this, he swiftly went to the bedroom. After discussions he finds inconvenient or troublesome, he usually locks the bedroom, leaving me feeling overwhelmed. I couldn't get any consultation, so I decided to give up. Lately, I can't seem to have a proper conversation with either Jack or Anne. Is this what family life is supposed to be like? I had no idea who to turn to or how to solve these painful feelings. Just when I was thinking a change was needed, and unusually initiated a conversation.
Hey, I'm planning to hang out with some friends.
Feeling happy that she spoke to me after a long time, I responded cheerfully.
Oh, going out with friends? That's nice. Have fun.
Then, and glared at me while slamming the table. I can't believe it. What's with the have fun? Are you mocking me? I was confused by her reaction, but it seemed to make her even angrier.
How am I supposed to go out when I don't have any money?
And is already in middle school. It's that age when even a little outing with friends tends to involve spending money.
Oh, my apologies, I wasn't thinking. Sorry for being so oblivious. How much do you need?
About $600. She said, tilting her head, sticking out her chin, and reaching out her hand. Since when had she become so brash? There are things you just don't do, even in a rebellious phase, especially to your parents. Although I had been smiling until then, I decided I couldn't overlook this behavior and spoke to Anne.
Look, when you do that, it hurts me. And besides, $600 is a lot for a middle schooler to go out once, don't you think?
I thought being clear would make Anne realize. But it seemed my approach backfired, making her even more irritated.
What? Suddenly playing the card of a mother is so annoying. You don't understand anything, yet you have the nerve to say that. Unreal.
She said and walked away. As she casually left the room, I noticed she took my wallet, which left me shocked and immobile. Just because we're family doesn't mean she can just take someone's wallet. What kind of mentality is that? Realizing this was beyond something I could handle alone, I decided to talk to Jack about it.
Jack, I'm really concerned about Anne lately. Today, she just took my wallet and left the room because she wanted money to go out.
Jack ignored me as if he hadn't heard a word.
And she demanded $600 to go out. Isn't that too much for a middle schooler for just one outing?
Then Jack glared at me.
If Anne says she needs that much for going out, then that's probably what she needs.
Just give it to her.
But $600 is a lot of money. It's not something you can just hand over so easily.
As we argued, and came out of her room, apparently having heard everything.
Are you still talking about that?
She was approaching me with a smug, unpleasant grin.
Well, you're just a homemaker with no money, right? All my friends' moms work, so they have money at home. We don't because of you. Being just a homemaker these days, what are you even thinking?
Then, both of them pointed at me and said,
Useless people who don't work should get out. Stop being a parasitic mom right now.
I felt something snap inside me upon hearing this.
Understood.
I realized there was no need to stay with people who treated me with such contempt. Then, Jack stood in front of me, waving a piece of paper. Hey, you're forgetting this. This is why clueless homemakers are no good. The paper was a divorce form. He approached me, waving the divorce papers. You should do things properly, it's common sense. Without hesitation, I put it in my bag.
I'll file this at the city court myself. It's wrong to bother you when you're so busy. Let me handle this at least.
Don't tell me you're planning to not file it and just keep it like that.
Of course not. Besides, the submission of a divorce form will be notified you. There's no way for me to deceive.
Jack seemed convinced by my words, glanced at me, and went into his room. For me, I couldn't bear the thought of considering someone who treated me so terribly as my husband. Driven by that thought, I left the house and immediately headed to the city court. Filing the divorce papers was straightforward and quick. I wished I had done it sooner, considering how easy it was. For now, I decided to move forward. I went straight to the neighboring town after filing the divorce papers. Amelia lived there, and she welcomed me immediately after hearing my situation. She handed me several bank cards.
It's good that I kept these for emergencies. Indeed. It's scary to think what would have happened if I had brought these into my marriage with Jack.
I had entrusted my bank cards to Amelia when I got married.
I've been married once too, and I know people change when they see a lot of money. Money you work hard for is the only kind that has real value. That's right. The trouble you had in your previous marriage was over this money. Yes. That's why I didn't want you to go through the same thing, Aubrey. I'm glad I insisted on keeping it.
Actually, we sisters had always been interested in money, working together to increase our wealth. We were fascinated by how to grow money efficiently and effectively. We tried every method to increase wealth, experimenting with various approaches. Besides asset management and investments, we also ventured into blog management, crowdsourcing, and entrepreneurship. After finishing my casual sales clerk job or during my free time as a homemaker, I enjoyed the thrill of watching my money grow. Before I knew it, my assets had exceeded $22 million, surprising even myself. But at the time of my marriage to Jack, what to do with the painstakingly accumulated $22 million became a source of worry. It's often said that people change when they see a lot of money. Even though Jack was a wonderful man, the thought of how he might change upon seeing this money was terrifying. At the time of our marriage, I had asked Amelia for a favor. The profit we made from our combined efforts was always supposed to be split equally between us, a firm promise since the time we started collaborating on investments and asset management.
Since you left home after getting married, I've been managing your share. Please check the bank accounts.
Thank you. It was a great decision to ask Amelia. If seeing big money, no, even if not from seeing big money, some people change just by getting married. That's why I said it, remember? It's better to keep quiet about having money for a while, even after getting married. I had kept secret the fact that I had been working on various projects with my twin sister and increasing our money. People might betray you in the end, but money never does. So true. I'm glad I took Amelia's advice. Amelia's advice turned out to be beneficial in ways I never imagined. Even though I was just working on small things at home as a homemaker, thanks to Amelia's efforts, we generated more profits than I expected. A year later, the amount increased even more, making me almost scream with joy.
It took a long journey to increase it to this extent. Indeed. Thanks to all Amelia did. Oh, stop, you're making me blush. By the way, Aubrey, I have something to consult with you.
Then, Amelia showed me an email.
A financial magazine wants to feature us. It's a women's finance magazine, and they want to hear about our journey of increasing wealth through asset management and work-from-home projects. Oh, I sometimes read that magazine. It's amazing we've been featured in it, being amateurs. Really. I never imagined we'd be featured when we started working together. So, we're okay to accept, right? Of course.
We later gave an interview, and our responses were published in the magazine. It was unbelievable to see us featured in a magazine section. For privacy, our faces were blurred and initials used, so it wasn't immediately obvious it was about us. A few weeks after the magazine went on sale, I started receiving dozens of calls from the same number. It should have been hard to recognize us just from that content alone. Counting the calls, there were 20 from Jack and Anne. Initially, I ignored them, but one day, out of curiosity, I answered, and Jack immediately started speaking in a pressing tone.
Hey, you're the one in that magazine, aren't you, Aubrey? What are you talking about? Is this how you start a conversation with your ex-wife? I know, because we were married for years, or rather, because we truly loved each other, there are things you just understand.
While I thought his abrupt call and absurd claims were typical of him, I decided to make things clear.
Just so you know, we are strangers now since we're divorced. Please refrain from leaving dozens of calls, it's quite intimidating. Intimidating? That's an exaggeration. I just want to talk to my loving wife. Wife? We're divorced, remember?
Jack yelled over the phone.
Can't believe you took that joke seriously? I'm done dealing with someone like you who can't take a joke.
Jack blurted out unbelievably.
Marrying a failure like you and suffering mentally? I haven't forgotten that. I'll make sure you pay me a hefty alimony for that.
I couldn't let this slide and decided to fight back.
Alimony? To you? No way. Have you forgotten that it's you who should be paying alimony?
What do you mean by that?
You might think I haven't noticed, but I know all about it. You were having an affair with a temp worker at your office.
I could picture him getting flustered over the phone. His voice was getting higher.
What? An affair? What are you talking about? Stop making things up. I'm telling you now, I had you investigated before our divorce. You were out there having affairs while pretending to be on business trips. You've got some nerve living life so calmly as if nothing happened. What are you gonna do now, investigating me? Don't tell me you're talking about getting alimony from me.
Jack kept on ranting like a yapping puppy.
Don't worry, I didn't get this info to squeeze every last penny out of you. I have more meaningful uses for it. Meaningful? What are you planning to do with it?
Who knows? Oh, I hear Anne's voice over the phone. Can I talk to her? I could hear Anne's lethargic voice on the other end. They must have thought I'd cave in and give them a chunk of money. I could overhear them saying, "It's her money, I deserve a share." I decided to talk to Anne.
Long time no see, and sorry I couldn't give you much allowance back then. Don't worry about it, Mom. I was so happy to see you featured in that famous magazine.
And, unlike Jack, was trying to sweet-talk me. It was typical of her, but I wasn't going to be swayed by her tactics.
Seems like you've been promoting me all over. Of course. I'm proud of my mom. Really? So who was pretending to be my daughter, writing all sorts of nonsense on forums and social media?
What are you talking about? And acted as if she knew nothing.
No use playing dumb. I had everything checked by a lawyer. If you doubt me, I can read it out loud right here.
I decided to read out some of the forum posts.
You can't say these things seeing in my eyes, can you? Well, that's all those lies about me being greedy, involved in illegal money, being chased by dangerous people. You've got quite the imagination.
And seemed flustered but continued.
Well, you probably thought you wouldn't get caught using a pseudonym. You've got to own up to your actions. Who do you think you are, talking about responsibility? I'm a minor, and this is just a family dispute. Threatening me is pointless.
Seeing she didn't get it, I thought it best to just hang up.
Anyway, I'm entitled to some of your money. Just transfer it to my account. I'll handle the rest here.
I was appalled by their complete lack of remorse over the phone, but that deep sense of disgust somehow made me feel liberated. I decided to take action without hesitation. Thinking this way, I decided to take action. I informed a mutual acquaintance of Jack, someone I met through work, about his numerous affairs. I also sent screenshots of the forum posts and had made to her school. I included a letter stating my intention to report to the police, so I'm sure some action will be taken. Word travels fast, and people who heard my story or read the letter were shocked, spreading the rumors even quicker. Thanks to these rumors, Jack's chances of advancement at his job were destroyed, as everyone at work became aware of his affairs. Anne's nearly confirmed recommendation for advanced studies was cancelled, leaving her in a state of panic. Known school-wide for her embarrassing forum posts, her friends quickly distanced themselves, leaving her to spend her days alone. One day at the supermarket, I ran into Jack and Anne. They looked nothing like they used to.
Hey, you think you're better than us just because you're rich?
What are you talking about? And why are you ambushing me here?
You did it, didn't you? You're the one who spread the word about my affairs at work. And because of you, Anne's recommendation fell through.
Their approach was full of the desperation of people who had nothing left to lose. It seemed they had been keeping tabs on my family's house.
You've messed everything up. You should have just kept quiet and given us the money.
I always wanted to have a good relationship with you two as a family, but you're the ones who ruined it. Don't blame others for your mistakes.
You just keep talking back. Who do you think you are?
While being astonished at their words, I responded. Considering everything that's happened, including today's incident, maybe I should talk to the police. There are limits to what can be tolerated, even with ex-family. And if this continues... Mentioning the police made Jack and Anne awkwardly look down. Do you really want to escalate this further and involve the police? Realizing they had no other options, they walked away. Since my divorce, I've been working with Amelia on managing our assets. In hindsight, I'm really glad I never told Jack about my total assets of $22 million. Just thinking about what might have happened if I had been completely honest with Jack and gives me a headache. Recently, Amelia and I have been excited about starting a new company. I've heard there are women who want to divorce but can't due to financial issues. I'm thinking of starting a school that can support women like them, helping them build skills from home. I hope to be a support for people struggling with family relationships, unable to take the first step, just like I did. My name is Sofia Martinez. I'm turning 35 this year. I'm just a regular office worker at a general company. Recently, I've been thankfully given some projects to handle. I love my job, so in that aspect, I'm truly fulfilled each day. But on the other hand, my married life is almost completely not going well. My husband, Henry, and I have been married for 7 years. This guy, Henry, is so good at making me feel unpleasant, it's like no one else can beat him at that. Just today, we had a fight over something trivial.
Hey! I've told you to clean up your dishes after eating, right? The sink in the kitchen is right there. I really wish you'd start taking your plates there yourself after you're done eating. Will you stop nagging? You could at least clean up the dishes. Aren't you the wife? Serving your husband should be your joy. It's your fault for using so many dishes in the first place. Your cooking isn't even that great. So, it's all your fault. Hurry up and clean it.
What? This kind of argument happens at least once a day. It's just a daily occurrence.
Serving your husband? Where on earth did you pick up that phrase? It's just weird. I'm not your servant. We both work, so let's share the household chores, like we agreed at first. Oh, just stop. You're so annoying. That's why it's all your fault. I wanted you to be a stay-at-home wife. Don't push the housework on me when you can't even fulfill my wish. What a failure of a wife.
After dropping his one-sided comments, my husband Henry stormed out of the house in anger. I felt a bit sorry for his colleagues who would bear the brunt of his temper, but then again, it's not my problem. I realized that his inability to control his anger was the real issue. Henry often says he wanted me to be a stay-at-home wife. However, he started saying this only after we got married and it became clear that I earned more. It's probably just his ego hurt because I'm the higher earner. He's such a petty man. I can't even remember why I started dating and married such a man. Anyway, the relationship between Henry and me had gone cold. Arguing had become our only form of communication. And even those arguments felt like we were just going through the motions. Our relationship couldn't possibly get worse, only stay the same or deteriorate further. So, I had made up my mind to get a divorce. I'm sure Henry has thought about divorcing me too. Why doesn't he initiate the divorce himself? It's simple. He hasn't brought it up because he's dependent on my income. Maybe he'd miss having someone to insult and vent his frustrations on. Thinking about it is making me angry. I have everything prepared to make the divorce work in my favor. Frankly, Henry has been unfaithful. I plan to use this to bring up divorce soon. One day, as I was thinking along these lines, Henry said he was leaving for a 3-day business trip. Knowing he was probably off to a getaway with his affair partner, I watched him with contempt as he pushed the travel preparations onto me. Whether it's a business trip or a vacation, why can't he prepare himself? Does he really think I have no suspicions? Maybe he thinks he's hiding it well. Perhaps he's secretly pleased with himself. When I refused to help and told him to do it himself, he yelled in an intimidating manner and retreated to his room. Eventually, he ended up making the preparations himself. Why doesn't he do it when he's capable of it? The next morning, Henry left the house without even seeing me. A few hours later, things took a dramatic turn. I got a call from the hospital informing me that Henry had been in a traffic accident and was rushed to the emergency room. I headed to the hospital, feeling almost like it was a moment of revelation. As soon as I appeared in his hospital room, Henry, acting like a fish back in water, became arrogant.
Hey, you're late. It's an emergency situation for your husband. Hurry up and leave work. Here's a list of things I need. Go get my change of clothes and stuff right now. You're my wife, so act like it and take care of me.
Seriously, this guy. Lying in the bed and raising his voice at me, Henry handed me a list of things he needed. He looked completely fine. Not even a hint of whiplash, and I wondered if he really needed to be hospitalized. It's highly questionable. I noticed something odd about the bulge under his bed covers. His lower half, hidden under the white blanket, seemed unnaturally puffed up. And there's something odd about my husband's unusual tension. His words urging me to hurry up and go. His voice even sounds a bit panicked. It's clear to me that he's trying to get me out of here as quickly as possible. I strode over to his bed. If you need care, ask the person inside. What? Before Henry could respond, I grabbed the blanket and flung it off, almost as if I was about to expose him. Yes, it was as if I was about to peel away my husband's disguise. I had anticipated that his mistress would be hiding there. But what I found was a little girl, still too young for school. Maybe she wasn't even old enough to be in school yet. Petite, with her long hair tied in 2 braids. Huh? As a matter of fact, I knew her one way or the other. But I was so convinced it would be his mistress that I was momentarily dumbfounded. I made eye contact with the girl's large eyes and let out a silly sound. The girl seemed surprised at first, but then laughed out loud and said, "You found me.
See you later."
She quickly got down from the bed, waving her hands as she left the room. Silence fell in the room. Henry was moving his mouth. He seemed shocked by the sudden turn of events. This was my chance. I would control the conversation from here. I wasn't about to let him take the lead even once. I stared at Henry with a piercing gaze.
What were you doing, hiding such a small girl inside your bed?
Wait a minute. It's a misunderstanding. I didn't do anything. I was just playing hide and seek with a girl who happened to pass by. She asked for help finding a hiding spot, so
And you let her hide in your bed? Normally, nobody does that. Unbelievable. That's really creepy.
But, as I looked at him with utter disdain, Henry started moving his mouth again. He should just sew his mouth shut if he can't make a decent excuse. Creepy. You think you have the right to say that to me? Failure of a wife. If you say things like that, it's divorce, you know? Are you okay with that? Oh, he's bringing up divorce himself. Unexpected, but it saves me the trouble. Oh, really? Thank you. I never thought you'd be the one to bring it up. I always thought you were the type of man who could only cling to me. So, it's divorce then? You're agreeing to it, right? As I smiled sweetly, Henry's face turned pale. Good, time to press on. I pulled out the pre-filled divorce papers I always carried in my bag and threw them onto Henry's bed. The papers landed with a dry rustle. He looked at them as if seeing something unbelievable. What, Divorce? What is this? Yes, divorce. You get it? Divorce. I can say it as many times as you need. I'm actually really happy right now. What are you talking about? Divorce? Why would you suddenly bring out these divorce papers? Well, you were the one who mentioned it. Saying if I talked like that, it's divorce. You always yell about me not fulfilling your wishes, right? Be happy then. I'm fulfilling your wish. I can't stand you anymore. I absolutely don't want to take care of you. So let's get divorced.
What? It's just a joke, right? Why are you saying this all of a sudden? You've always followed me in everything.
That's why I'm agreeing to a divorce, but you just don't get it. But you know, I never felt like I was following you in anything. Just this moment is special. I'll accept your words about divorce.
No. I don't want a divorce. I never.
You might not want to thrash around too much. It might hurt your injury. Or is it that you're not really injured enough to need care? I said this as Henry tried to struggle in the bed. Then, although Henry was still breathing heavily, he stopped moving abruptly. He's surprisingly easy to handle. And I couldn't let him cause a scene in the hospital. Though I felt like punching him, that's a different story. I shook my head as if to say, oh well. Do you really not want a divorce? No, I don't want a divorce. That's obvious. And why is that? Why don't you want to divorce me? That's because I love you. Oh, is that so? Well, I don't love you anymore, so it's the opposite for me. What? Well, that's right. A husband who sneakily cheats for a long time is worthless to me. Henry showed a dumbfounded face. It seemed he really thought I hadn't caught on. Such sloppy tactics? How much does he underestimate me? So, it's about the affair. You have a mistress, don't you? Huh? Maybe you could say something meaningful. Well, it's okay if you're quiet in that state. Mistress. What are you talking about? You're too flustered. Look, the girl earlier, she wasn't just some unknown child, was she? She's your mistress's child, right? That's why you let her hide in your bed and helped her with hide and seek? How close you two must be. As I pointed things out bluntly, Henry looked genuinely confused, his face turning pale, and he even started to roll his eyes. I tapped his forehead to prevent him from fainting. Ow. Listen, we're just starting to talk. Pay attention, you might find something to prevent our divorce. Come on, if you don't want to divorce me, try your best. Ow, that hurts. Right, about your mistress. Her name is Lucy, a nurse working in this hospital. What luck or misfortune to be brought to the hospital where your mistress works. How? How do you know her name? Of course, I know. I did my research. And the girl earlier, Luna, that's Lucy's daughter. she's usually left at the hospital's daycare. Probably, she heard from her mom, Lucy, that you were hospitalized and came to visit. And then I happened to arrive at just the right moment. Bad timing, though. You knew about Lucy and even about Luna? That's why I had it investigated. Modern private investigators are really efficient. On the days you said you were on business trips, you were off on hot spring vacations and using family discounts at amusement parks with them. Quite the service-oriented spirit. Impressive. Henry doesn't seem to realize that his reaction to the mistress and child's names is practically an admission of his infidelity. When I received the report from the private investigator, I was truly appalled. Henry, his mistress, and her child looked so close, almost like a real family. Cheating is cheating, an act of infidelity, yet he maintained a facade of a good husband without actively resolving our marriage. I even suspected if Luna was his biological child with his mistress, but apparently, there is no such connection. It seems he told Lucy that I was crazy about him and not agreeing to a divorce. What a disgusting man. How I deal with this trash of a man is up to me. I braced myself for action. Henry looked at me wide-eyed. You're threatening me? I won't stand for it if you harm Lucy or Luna. What? Why should I do that? You're the one who said you wanted a divorce, and I'm just agreeing to it. Where do you get the idea that I would harm them? Of course, I have no intention of harming them. I will deal with him strictly according to the law, though a bit of personal sentiment is involved. Though, admittedly, a bit of personal sentiment is involved. I thought I had hidden it perfectly. Hidden what exactly? Henry groaned in frustration. And I sighed in disbelief. Despite never letting go of his smartphone, he never bothered to hide his messaging screen. His password is still set to his birthday. Our shared computer was filled with photos and memory albums of his mistress, and for all his claims of business trips, he never made any effort to cover up his lies. He didn't even bother to get his colleagues to corroborate his stories. When I checked with his company, it was usually leave, sick leave, or unexcused absence. You managed to keep your job this long? Even your boss was astonished when I checked. Didn't you ever think I might confirm your business trips with your company? What? You actually called my company. That's what I'm saying. I checked everything and explained our situation. You've been pretending to go on business trips while having affairs.
What? You did what?
When I told the department head, he had a very grim expression and said he'd inform the higher-ups. You should be glad, now the bigwigs at your company will know about you. Ugh, that's not something to be happy about. I mean... Henry frantically scratched his head. This incident made me contact his company for the first time, and apparently, his conduct there was quite something. Dumping work on his subordinates, spreading gossip about colleagues, and flattering his superiors. He was the perfect example of an employee on the brink of being fired. I looked down at him as he started muttering suspiciously and biting his nails, realizing he only ever thinks about his own self-preservation. But you should be worried about more than just them, shouldn't you? But you should be worried about more than just them, shouldn't you? Because, Henry, besides Lucy, you have another mistress, right? When I hit him with that, his expression went from stunned to shocked. His face kept changing like some kind of toy. So, about your mistresses. You don't just have one, right? As far as I know, besides Lucy, there's another one. Nah. And this accident, you were in the car with your second mistress, weren't you? Henry's eyes widened to their limit. How do you know about that? Actually, I already knew about your so-called business trip today that was really a cheating getaway. You made hotel reservations on your computer, didn't you? And such a fancy hotel too. Where do you get that kind of money? You're not going into debt for these affairs, are you? Henry visibly shook with nervousness. I already knew he was in debt, spending on 2 mistresses. With such frequent business trips, his money would disappear in no time. I had the private investigator track your travel destination to gather more conclusive evidence. But then, out of the blue, I get a call asking what to do because your husband has had an accident. I was so surprised. Yes, before the hospital even called, I had already been informed about the accident by the private investigator who was following your car. Henry seems unable to speak, just staring blankly. Your second mistress, she's more seriously injured than you and still in surgery, isn't she? Yet here you are, only worried about yourself. If she's a woman you once loved, shouldn't you show at least a bit of concern or distress? Until I pointed it out, you acted like you had forgotten about her, or just remembered. Well, considering your future, it's no wonder you're preoccupied with other matters. Huh? What do you mean my future? I'm talking about alimony, obviously. I'll definitely be demanding alimony from you. You'll have to pay alimony to your second mistress too, plus whatever costs may arise from this accident. And what about the cancellation fee for that fancy hotel? I don't have that kind of money. I know. But you'll have to pay it regardless. I'll make sure you pay in full, by any means necessary. There's no need to flex your muscles here. Besides, I've already told you, I have no intention of divorcing you. Lies. After being exposed this much, you still don't want a divorce? That's some nerve, I must say. I let out a sigh. Then I gazed at my husband with half-closed eyes. I contemplated how to corner him further, considering my next move like planning a strategy. Henry's eyes were darting around, desperately trying to figure out how to break the current situation. That's when a new character appeared. Are you Henry Martinez? The man who entered the hospital room was tall and slender, dressed in a suit. I knew him. Henry, however, seemed to have no idea who he was and looked utterly bewildered. In the middle of a heated argument about whether to divorce or not, a stranger, clueless about the situation, suddenly showed up. They must have been really surprised. The stranger made eye contact with the husband on the bed and they nodded to each other. Ah, right, about the alimony we were talking about earlier, I forgot to mention the part he's asking for. What? Nice to meet you, I'm Jack Smith, husband of your second mistress. Oh. Mr. Smith, Jack, greeted politely. My husband let out a cry of astonishment. What, huh? She was married? Yes, we've been married for 2 years now. Oh, you didn't know either, huh? But you can't really talk. It seems like you told her you were single. What you're capable of thinking, someone else might have already thought of. This time, it just turns out both of you were lying to each other. It seems you've also been keeping quiet about actually being married to me. You were like a father figure to your first mistress, and to your second, you acted like a wealthy middle-aged lover. Quite the lover, maintaining separate relationships with two at the same time, though it seems like a risky business. As she said this, the husband quickly looked away. It appears he almost got caught at some point. No wonder. Despite this, he's managed to maintain relationships with both mistresses for so long. His dedication to cheat is something else. The husband and his second mistress had been pretending to be single in their affair. Jack and I met while investigating our spouse's infidelity. We used a private investigator, and in our busy schedules, also did our own legwork, diligently investigating my husband's affairs. I secretly captured the moment my husband and Jack's wife entered a hotel on camera, and at almost the same time, someone else nearby snapped a photo too. We noticed each other and locked eyes for a few seconds. It felt like we were asking each other, "Are you in the same boat?" We understood each other without words. Given all that had happened, Jack and I had been secretly exchanging information on a daily basis. The confirmation of this cheating trip also came from information he provided. And when I received a call from the private investigator about a car accident, I immediately contacted Jack. "Jack, how's your wife's condition?" The surgery went well, but she'll need to stay in the hospital for a while and undergo rehabilitation." "I see. So, now the odds had shifted from a 1-on-1 with my husband to 2 against 1 in my favor. Victory seemed within reach. Jack and I were closing in on my husband, who now had the look of a textbook example of someone acting suspicious. "Henry, if you're so adamant about not agreeing to a divorce, then I'm prepared to fight this to the end. I'm willing to go to court." "A trial?" "I've gathered evidence of your affair with my wife, including the incident. I'll be claiming alimony, and of course, I'll be filing a claim against my wife as soon as she recovers. But what about my medical expenses, my hospital bills? What am I supposed to do?" "You should pay for them yourself. It's only fair, given that this is all your own doing." "I skipped work for this trip and ended up like this. If you've explained everything to my company, then they've probably already decided on my punishment. I can't go back to that job. I'll lose my job, meaning no salary, no money. I can't pay anything. Do you at least realize you've done something wrong to the company? I haven't embezzled or faked business trips. The worst they'll probably do is urge me to resign, right?
Which basically means you're fired. Damn it, why is this happening to me?"
Maybe you shouldn't be shouting so much." Jack and I just looked on in dismay at my husband, who was making a scene on the hospital bed. Just then, a shrill, coquettish voice echoed through the room. "Oh my, what's going on, mi amore?" Your loud voice could be heard all the way down the hall. "You shouldn't be making a fuss right after a traffic accident, you know, it's not good for you." "Luna was back at the daycare, what happened?" Don't hesitate to press the nurse call button. Peeking her face in was Mistress Number 1, Lucy Brown. Her perfectly done makeup was charming, but the shrill voice and flashy hair color were a stark mismatch with her nurse's uniform. Well, perhaps this workplace has a liberal atmosphere regarding makeup and hairstyles. Best not to delve too deep into that. But still, calling my husband mi amore. But the thought that the person being called mi amore is my own husband is not funny at all. Jack and I greeted politely to her when our eyes met. Her cute face momentarily contorted. It was a look of oh no. Clearly, she was quite perceptive. My husband tried to seek help from her, saying, "Lucy, help me out," but she quickly made up a transparent lie. "Oh, I must have entered the wrong room." She told an obvious lie and quickly scampered away. With his last resort, Lucy, having fled, my husband slumped in defeat. He seemed to have no more energy to resist us. This was a complete victory. The divorce from my now subdued husband was successfully finalized. Jack ended up being like a witness to the proceedings, and I made sure to oversee their discussion about the alimony. By then, my ex-husband had become a complete yes man. He was now living a life drowning in alimony from me, from Jack, and for the accident. Essentially, a life buried in debt. After being discharged, my ex-husband, having no choice but to quit his job, apparently turned to Lucy. This too was something I had anticipated. According to the private investigator, Lucy's family seems to be quite wealthy. She was probably the only one he could turn to. I can ask Mom and Dad to pay off mi amore's debts, but...
Really? Please, you're the only one I can rely on, Lucy. Then, mi amore, you'll be my slave for life.
Whether such a conversation actually happened is unclear, but after divorcing me, they quickly got married, and ever since, my ex-husband seems to be living under virtual house arrest. It's astounding how smitten she is with my ex-husband, not even minding that he was two-timing her. Maybe she's actually a good wife? But it might not be great for her daughter's upbringing. Well, I received the full alimony, so my ex-husband's upbringing is no longer my concern. The Smiths' divorce also went through, and we both breathed a sigh of relief that our long battles were over. I started anew, moving into the high-rise apartment I had always dreamed of. The space without my burdensome ex-husband feels so liberating. I took a deep breath, excited about my new life ahead.
I'm so glad the baby was born safely. I'm sorry I couldn't do anything. It's not like that. Just having you, Nathaniel, is enough. Let's secure our happiness together.
I felt terribly nauseated by those words. But I couldn't just leave things this way. I finally reached for the door. I knocked lightly and opened it. "Hey, who do you think is the father of this baby?" I entered the hospital room, reacted to Mirabelle's words, and looked up. Who could it be? Someone we know, maybe? What do you think, Christina? Nathaniel interrupted our conversation in a panic. For some reason, both the arrogant Mirabelle and the flustered Nathaniel seemed ridiculous, and I spat out. "Of course, we know him. Congratulations, be happy. Make that child happy together." Then, I left the hospital room, leaving Nathaniel behind. Surely, they will receive their comeuppance. There's no way they could be happy after making someone else miserable. I was on my way to prepare a new future for them. My name is Christina Manson. I'm currently a 37-year-old housewife. I was born and raised in a rural area in Nebraska. I have one younger sister. I grew up happily as the eldest daughter in a very ordinary family. After graduating from high school, I worked as an office clerk in a local company. It wasn't flashy, but I spent my days happily and earnestly. Then, while working, I was introduced to my husband, Nathaniel Maruyama. Nathaniel was the son of the president of a client company. He was 3 years older than me and seemed too good for me. The executive who introduced Nathaniel to me said to his father, the president, "Christina is serious and accurate in her work. She's also well regarded by our clients for her kindness." If a man who rarely praises anyone says that, she must be a wonderful young lady. My father-in-law took a liking to me from the first meeting. Nathaniel also liked me, and we started dating, leading to our marriage when I was 33. I quit my job and became a full-time housewife. Everyone celebrated my new life. But there was one person who didn't. That was my sister, Mirabelle. Mirabelle, 10 years younger than me. She was a much-awaited second child born to my mother after fertility treatments. As such, she was doted on and spoiled by the family. Of course, I also adored Mirabelle.
"I want to eat pudding."
"This is yours, isn't it, Christina?" "Mirabelle, you had yours yesterday." "It's okay, let her have it." That's how it always was, letting her get away with a little selfishness. Because of that, Mirabelle developed a personality quite opposite to mine, becoming quite the charmer. She always able to express her opinions clearly, for better or worse. "I don't want your hand-me-downs, they're so out of style. I don't want to wear them." When she was in elementary school, she would refuse to wear my old clothes, causing trouble for Mom. Truth is, our family wasn't exactly wealthy, rather on the lower middle class side. Even though all my clothes were hand-me-downs too, I never complained, no matter how much I disliked them. It's not like Mirabelle shouldn't complain just because I didn't, but I think learning to be patient is important. They're not out of style. They might be a bit old, but they're still wearable designs. Whenever I tried to argue back, she'd sassily retort, "You're just too unfashionable to realize how lame those clothes are." Sure, I might not have been the most stylish, but the new clothes I did get were always worn with care, and Mom kept them in good condition. Since I wasn't into flashy stuff, my wardrobe consisted mostly of timeless, basic items from untrendy brands. I thought they would be perfectly fine for Mirabelle too. But obviously, she just didn't like the idea of wearing my hand-me-downs. Still, as sisters bound by blood, our tastes were unknowingly quite similar, and the things Mirabelle would buy were often the same items I had, just in different colors. Yet, because of her cuteness, both our parents and I ended up spoiling her. Her whims escalated as she entered high school. She'd demand more allowance and buy anything she wanted right away, be it makeup or bags. If she didn't want to go to school, she'd skip. If she wanted to go out, she'd be out all night. At this point, our parents weren't just indulging her, they scolded her numerous times. We had to go out looking for her in the middle of the night more than once or twice. Even if Dad and Mom refused to give her allowance, she'd run off to our unsuspecting grandparents and wheedle money out of them. No amount of lecturing or restrictions could change Mirabelle, who'd been free-spirited since she was little. I'm the one who spoiled Mirabelle. What if she keeps skipping and ends up dropping out? Mom felt responsible for Mirabelle's behavior, but Mirabelle did manage to graduate high school. And even found a job. We were all relieved, but shockingly, she quit after just a month. There's this stinky old man there, she said, as if that was a good enough reason to quit. Afterwards, she drifted between various part-time jobs, and now at 23, she seems to have settled down a bit. She became an adult now, so my parents and I didn't say anything to her. She's been working steadily for the past 2 years without quitting. Maybe she's finally learned a bit about personal responsibility and has calmed down. But then, upon my marriage, she suddenly wanted to quit her job too. Isn't it unfair, just you? Marrying the son of a CEO and becoming a housewife, I'm so jealous. That was Mirabelle's first reaction when I announced my marriage. Being a housewife doesn't mean I won't do housework, and I'm planning to do some uncompensated company work from home. Even when I explained this, the idea of quitting her job seemed irresistibly appealing to her. House chores are over in a flash, and company work is just a few minutes, right? I can't slack off, though. Well, having a father-in-law who's a CEO must mean a lot of family obligations, right? It seems like you'll never have a moment's rest. Mom took my side, but there was no way Mirabelle would be convinced. It's just a matter of patience until your in-laws are gone. In a few years, you'll be the CEO's wife, won't you? How can you say something like that? I was deeply offended by Mirabelle's remarks. Seeing me upset, Mirabelle laughed it off, saying, "Just kidding." But I wasn't in the mood to laugh, and our parents were just as stunned by her comment. Mirabelle's childish, self-centered words were too much for everyone. Yet, after a while, she actually quit her job. I quit my job, so I'll start doing the housework tomorrow. I'm gonna be a housewife. We were all taken aback by her sudden declaration, having never helped Mom before. I was planning to get married and leave home in a few months, but I felt sorry for my parents who had to continue living with Mirabelle. I can't believe she really quit her job. When I expressed my dismay, my parents just gave a wry smile. We thought she had settled down, but Mirabelle is still a child at heart. She's okay now, but what's she planning to do in the future without a steady job? While they believe in personal responsibility, my parents couldn't help but worry. Well, let's just hope Mirabelle doesn't cause Christina any trouble. Yes, you have to be happy and not let Mirabelle affect you. In the end, I couldn't do anything about Mirabelle's newfound enthusiasm for housewifery and left to get married. Despite moving out, I couldn't stop worrying about my family back home. My in-laws were kind, and life was comfortable, but being a housewife was harder than I expected. Besides house chores and work, there were relative gatherings and preparing gifts for company events, all of which were overwhelming. Even though we lived separately, my mother-in-law would often come over to teach me things, saying, "It must be tough marrying into this family, right?" No, I understand because it was hard for me too. But let's take it easy and not overdo it. If you try too hard, you'll run out of breath. My mother-in-law always taught me with a smile. And understood the challenges a daughter-in-law faces. My friends said it sounded tough, but my mother-in-law always looked out for me, even preparing meals while I was busy learning my new job. I was deeply moved by how fortunate I was to have such wonderful in-laws. My parents are really happy that Christina became my wife. Nathaniel said that too. Gradually, I started to blend in as a daughter-in-law in this family. Then, 2 years into our marriage, I was blessed with our long-awaited first child. My in-laws were overjoyed. Nathaniel seemed excited about the baby's arrival too. However, I had a concerning thought opposite to this joy. Nathaniel's suspicious behavior. He would take his phone to the bathroom, and his business dinners increased suddenly. Recently, we had less face-to-face time. With his reduced time at home, I worried he might be tired and once commented, you seem really busy lately. Being the CEO soon, I'm swamped with constant calls and appointments. But Nathaniel gave a predictable reply and returned to his phone. Since getting pregnant, I've been feeling increasingly anxious about Nathaniel not being around. Then one day, I started to suspect he might be having an affair. It happened when I saw him on his phone. He was smiling more than usual for a work call. That expression unsettled me. Suddenly got a call, I need to go out. Sure enough, Nathaniel approached me immediately after that look. Right now? Yeah, that president always calls at the last minute. You go ahead and sleep. With that, Nathaniel left the house in a hurry. I thought it was unbelievable. What urgent matter could there be at this hour? Seeing my husband leave in the middle of the night while I was pregnant woke me up. I decided to hire a detective for the sake of our unborn child and to get Nathaniel to realize what he's doing. After some time, my parents called me.
Mirabelle's been taken to the hospital. Come quickly.
I was shocked by their call. Hearing she was taken to the gynecology department, I thought she might have ovarian torsion, so I rushed to the hospital. Is Mirabelle's checkup done? Is she okay? I found my parents in the waiting room at the hospital and asked them. It turns out she's pregnant and she's started labor.
What?
I exclaimed in surprise at my mother's words. She didn't realize until now? Mirabelle had regular checkups, but we didn't hear anything about it. I didn't show much during my pregnancy either, and Mirabelle's belly didn't seem to show much either, so we didn't notice. I instinctively touched my own belly. Indeed, I'm not the type with a noticeable belly either. But can it really happen that nobody notices a pregnancy until the last month? It's no use thinking about that now, though. Soon after, I heard a healthy baby's cry, bringing a momentary relief before other concerns emerged. The question now was, how to raise this child. Mirabelle, an unmarried self-proclaimed housewife without a job. And we didn't even know who the father was. But right after giving birth, it wasn't the time to ask Mirabelle such questions, so I went home after seeing the newborn's face. Mirabelle had a baby. I told Nathaniel when I got home.
Really? Mirabelle's a mom now?
Nathaniel seemed surprised but smiled happily.
Can I go see her too? How about we go together this weekend? I only saw the baby briefly today, so I'm planning to visit again. All right, I'll try to rearrange my work schedule.
Nathaniel said, immediately fiddling with his phone. It's all lies about work adjustments. But I hoped seeing Mirabelle's child might make him change. Then, on the weekend, Nathaniel and I went to visit Mirabelle in the hospital. Right before entering the hospital, my phone rang. It was from the detective agency. It wasn't good to answer with Nathaniel around. Sensing my hesitation, Nathaniel asked, "Is that a call? Can I go ahead?" It seems he is looking forward to seeing the baby, which makes me feel relieved. Yeah, I'll be there soon, this call won't take long. I said goodbye to Nathaniel and answered the call. After the call, feeling gloomy, I headed to the hospital room. Then I heard voices from inside. I'm so glad the baby was born safely. I'm sorry I couldn't do anything.
It's not like that. Just having you, Nathaniel, is enough. Let's secure our happiness together.
The call I had just received made those words nauseating to me. But I couldn't just leave. I finally reached for the door, knocked lightly, and opened it.
How are you feeling, Mirabelle?
Sis!
You came. Of course, I did.
Nathaniel was holding the baby and looking happy. I gave birth first, huh? He's healthy and cute, right? I wonder what your child will be like, Christina. Indeed. It seemed Mirabelle wanted to one-up me. Her tone irritated me, but I kept my response short, not wanting to rise to the bait. Then, perhaps frustrated that I didn't react, Mirabelle spoke more forcefully. Hey, who do you think is the father of this baby? I looked up, reacting to her words. Who could it be? Someone we know, maybe? What do you think, Christina? Nathaniel hurriedly joined our conversation. Both Mirabelle's arrogance and Nathaniel's panic seemed ridiculous to me, and I retorted. Of course, we know him. Congratulations, be happy. Make that child happy together. Christina. I'm leaving now. Are you going already? Wait, please. Nathaniel, trying to follow me, hastily laid the baby on the bed but was stopped by Mirabelle. What? If you knew, then that's great. Nathaniel, you're lucky. Nathaniel was flustered, frozen by Mirabelle grabbing his clothes. I left him there and headed straight for the detective agency. The call I received earlier was to inform me that the evidence was ready. The detective hesitantly added, Actually, we've seen a woman familiar with the gynecology clinic about 10 minutes west of your house, accompanied by Nathaniel. It was the very clinic where Mirabelle gave birth. As much as I didn't want to believe it, Mirabelle always wanted what was mine. The earlier conversation confirmed my suspicions. Nathaniel was definitely having an affair with Mirabelle. After collecting the evidence from the detective agency, I went to my in-laws' house. Nathaniel has a child. A child? What do you mean? Isn't it too early for our grandchild? Confused, my in-laws tilted their heads. Yes. The child is not mine. Please look at this. I handed them the evidence I received from the detective agency. As they looked at it, their faces turned pale. After realizing everything, they were full of apologies.
I had no idea it would come to this.
My mother-in-law was in tears, almost bowing her head to the floor. Mother-in-law, please lift your head. I'm not here to ask for an apology from you too. But I cannot forgive Nathaniel. I think it's going to end in divorce. I see. A wonderful woman like you, Christina, being saddened like this, we as his parents can't forgive him either. We truly are sorry. We'll do anything we can to help. Thank you. I felt a deep relief knowing my in-laws were understanding. The divorce seemed like it would go smoothly. After our conversation, their anger turned towards Nathaniel.
What on earth is Nathaniel thinking? We need to talk to him right away.
My father-in-law said that, and immediately started calling Nathaniel. As soon as the call connected, he shouted loudly.
I've heard everything from Mirabelle. What is this about? Come and explain. It's a misunderstanding, listen to me.
Nathaniel sounded panicked over the phone. His pitiful voice leaking from the smartphone made me chuckle, but there were no smiles on my in-laws' faces.
All right. We'll hear everything, just get here quickly. Sorry, I'll be there right away.
His voice was almost like a scolded child. Imagining his face, I let out a small laugh. Not wanting to face Nathaniel, I went home right after. And started packing. The house was a wedding gift from my father-in-law. And my mother-in-law had furnished it for me. I didn't want these gifts from my in-laws to be taken by Mirabelle after the divorce. When I shared my feelings, my in-laws said, Of course. We gave that house and furniture to you, Christina. But we understand if you don't want to live there. We have an apartment closer to the station, so move there for now. Thank you. They arranged a new home and moving company for me. Thanks to my in-laws, I moved out quickly. Nathaniel seemed to be grounded at his parents', not even allowed to go to work. My mother-in-law kept me updated about his situation. About a week later, I finally got a call from Nathaniel. Christina. I finally got to call you. Mom took my phone, why are we getting a divorce? There's nothing to discuss. How can we continue our marriage when you have a child with another woman?
It was just a fling with Mirabelle. I didn't expect her to get pregnant. Anyway, I'm on my way home, let's talk. Don't leave, stay there.
Nathaniel said in a rushed tone and hung up, but I couldn't help but laugh. I had already moved out. Where on earth was Nathaniel heading to? Then, just a few minutes later, predictably, Nathaniel called again. "What do you mean? Why is the house gone?" His foolish voice made me laugh as I answered. "I've already sold the house. The new owner plans to turn it into a parking lot."
That's outrageous. That house is in my dad's name.
Of course, I got their permission. The day I moved out, I disposed of your things. So, there's no house for you anymore. Just go back to your parents' house quietly. After I moved out, my father-in-law sold the house. I was grateful for his help. As I told Nathaniel, the new owner planned to turn it into a parking lot, and the house was demolished a few days ago. I went to see it being torn down. I thought I might feel sad, but watching the house being demolished with loud noises, I felt relieved. So, we really can't go back now. Nathaniel's probably standing where the house used to be. His voice sounded weak and desperate. He was just being stubborn, not accepting the inevitable. If he regretted it so much, he shouldn't have cheated in the first place.
Stop being so persistent. Reflect on your actions back at your parents' place.
Nathaniel must have escaped from his parents' scolding, but now he had nowhere else to find solace. He had destroyed it himself. That night, I received a call from my parents. Mirabelle is claiming Nathaniel is the baby's father, but that must be a mistake, right? Apparently, Mirabelle had been saying that since her discharge from the hospital, but my parents had ignored it, thinking it impossible. However, as she persisted, my mother called me, wondering if it might be true. "I hate to ask you this, Christina. But what Mirabelle is saying is true. I'm planning to divorce Nathaniel." "No way." "I've already informed Nathaniel's parents and they're arranging a new place for me. I'll start discussing the divorce soon." My mother sounded like she was crying on the phone. She apologized several times, saying Mirabelle is sorry for what she did, which brought tears to my eyes. My mother seemed to feel responsible for her actions. Despite being an adult, Mirabelle probably couldn't imagine how her actions hurt others. "Don't worry about anything, Mom." I reassured my parents and ended the call. Then, with my in-laws present, we began discussing the divorce. I was wrong. I fell for Mirabelle's temptation. Nathaniel seemed not to want a divorce, apologizing repeatedly, but his words didn't resonate with me. "If you truly feel sorry, will you marry Mirabelle?" "That's impossible. The baby is born now, and Mirabelle can't raise a child alone. You need to take responsibility." Nathaniel fell silent at my words, unable to respond. My father-in-law sighed deeply. "Christina, we will support the child you're expecting. Nathaniel, fulfill your obligations to Christina's sister and the child." Nathaniel reluctantly signed the divorce papers after being told this by both me and his father. I hope he reflects on his actions and how they led to this situation. After our divorce, Nathaniel remarried Mirabelle and began living with his parents. The house was gone, so they had no choice but to live together. By that time, I was in my final month of pregnancy but living comfortably in the house my in-laws had prepared for me. "I'm sorry for taking Nathaniel away." Mirabelle messaged me, but I ignored it. Responding to Mirabelle now could harm my health. But probably, this was exactly what she wanted. "I wonder what kind of child your sister will have. Cousins, but more like siblings, isn't that funny? Well, I'm younger and prettier, so my child will surely be better." She kept sending such insensitive messages.
"And hey, I haven't received a baby shower gift from you yet."
Frustrated by her continuous messages, especially about a baby shower gift, I finally replied.
"Are you at home? I'll come over right now."
I had ignored her for so long, but this message pushed me to visit Nathaniel's house. "How are you, Christina?" My mother-in-law greeted me warmly, showing concern even after the divorce. That day too, they welcomed me warmly to their home and invited me in right away. "Is Mirabelle here?" "Nathaniel is off today, so she's probably around." My mother-in-law hesitated a bit, clearly uneasy. With a smile, I said, "Great. I've brought a baby shower gift for Mirabelle and Nathaniel. I entered and sat in the living room. My mother-in-law called Mirabelle. Mirabelle held the baby and looking content. She had no idea what was about to unfold. She looked at me with a mocking smile. Finally brought the baby shower gift? Well, we aren't short of money. I handed her a thick envelope. The envelope was so thick. It was too big to contain cash, making Mirabelle frown. What's this? I didn't plan to give it, but this is my gift to you. Mirabelle cautiously handed the baby to Nathaniel and opened the envelope. As she looked through the papers, her face turned pale.
What is this? What do you mean by this?
She shouted angrily at Nathaniel. Nathaniel looked at the documents Mirabelle was holding with a puzzled expression. And then he turned pale.
I don't know anything about this. It wasn't me. It's obviously you, Nathaniel.
I couldn't help but smile at their exchange. Actually, the envelope contained investigation documents from the detective. I had shown them to my in-laws, of course, but they revealed a shocking truth unknown to Mirabelle. Nathaniel had not just been unfaithful with Mirabelle. There were 4 others. Mirabelle was only the third in line. The first was a double affair with a subordinate's wife in his company. Nathaniel was really into her. According to my mother-in-law, the husband found out, and Nathaniel finally broke it off when he married Mirabelle. The second was a 20-year-old he met on an app. Incredibly, it was this girl, not Mirabelle, who accompanied him to the gynecologist. According to the detective, they were there for an abortion. And the third was Mirabelle. The fourth was a friend of Mirabelle, introduced by her. Of course, I knew all this, but by then Nathaniel was a stranger to me. Regardless of how many relationships he had, the fact that one of them was with my sister made it completely unacceptable. It was enough to make him irredeemable. I had planned to bury this information if Mirabelle sincerely apologized and reflected on her actions. However, her constant attempts to one-up me made me decide to bring her down from her high horse.
You're terrible. A liar.
As expected, Mirabelle went into hysterics, crying and screaming. Even though she was holding her precious baby. She cursed Nathaniel repeatedly and tried to grab him. What's all this noise? At that moment, my father-in-law returned home. Seeing me, he said happily, Christina. You're here. Then, he glared at Mirabelle and Nathaniel. What are you doing, shouting in front of the baby? Father-in-law. Listen, Nathaniel has.
Oh, they both know everything Nathaniel has done.
I smiled at Mirabelle, who had a meltdown. Oh, that matter. My father-in-law said in a weary tone.
After all, Mirabelle, you were part of the affair. Do you even have the right to blame Nathaniel?
I think only Christina has the right to blame Nathaniel. Frustrated that her parents-in-law weren't on her side, Mirabelle bit her lip. And, I've prepared a new place for the 3 of you to live. Eh? Mirabelle's eyes lit up at my father-in-law's words despite her anger. I negotiated the rent down to $1,600 a month with a friend's company. Got it $60 cheaper. Now, please leave this place quickly. However, upon hearing those words, despair washed over their faces. Wait. What do you mean, leave? And why do I have to pay rent while Christina got a new house for free? You have a new job lined up too. It's a sales position at that real estate company.
A new job? You're kicking me out of the company, even though I'm the future CEO?
Both Nathaniel and Mirabelle confronted my father-in-law. However, he smiled and said, When did I ever say you were the next CEO? You just assumed that yourself. Besides, I can't keep someone in the company who gets involved with employees' families. Pack your things and leave. The two, who had been arguing, now united in their protest against my father-in-law. I was astonished by their behavior, but my mother-in-law murmured next to me. Ever since Christina and Nathaniel divorced, your father planned to cut him off. We both really thought of Christina as part of our family. I was overjoyed by her words. And I chuckled inwardly at the divine retribution my sister and her husband faced, having lost their home, jobs, and trust. The sister and her husband moved into the house my father-in-law had prepared. Surprisingly, it was a 15-minute walk from the station. However, it was next to a pediatric clinic and just a 3-minute walk to a supermarket, ideal for raising a child. According to my parents, Mirabelle complained about not being able to go out, but if there were too many temptations, she would surely squander money. I hope she earnestly tries to raise her child in the house my father-in-law found for her grandchild's sake. Nathaniel is now working in sales at a real estate company, under Mirabelle's thumb. Interestingly, this real estate company is run by the family of the subordinate Nathaniel had an affair with. I don't know if the company is aware of Nathaniel's actions, but he must be feeling uncomfortable there. Moreover, with the alimony payments, Mirabelle won't be able to live the luxurious life she wanted. Neither Mirabelle nor Nathaniel could have imagined this life, but they brought it upon themselves. No matter what, I hope they make their child happy. I later gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Both my parents and my in-laws adore him. Though the family ties with my in-laws have been severed, we still keep in touch and I live in the apartment they arranged. I now work remotely for my father-in-law's company, which I used to do unpaid. They made me an employee and I earn enough to raise my child on my own. I may have been plain, but I've always cherished people and acted with integrity. I believe this is the result of that. I might not have been lucky with my husband, but I have a beautiful son. And I'm truly grateful for the opportunity to work from home while raising my child.